Dr. Kanimori, you're a senior data scientist at Crayon Data. So, what does it really mean to be a data scientist in common terms for a students to understand? And how is it different from a computer scientist?
Got it. So I wouldn't the kind of differentiation is basically based on the software and hardware that we deal with. When we consider like the companies like Nvidia, so they mostly concentrate on the deep learning hardware oriented changes, accelerators, and like inventing new hardware and kind of all the hardware kind of like how the processing engine should be advanced, CPU, GPU, and TPUs and all. So it's completely based on our interest in terms of like concentrating whether we are like focusing on the hardware side or the software side. So the as a data scientist we'll be dealing with data, and we won't be like bothering about the processing capability, but we just mentioned, so this is the cluster capability that I need in terms of processing this amount of data. So that's all we would say as a data scientist. But when it comes to like customer scientists, they will bother about how we satisfy the customer, and how does like it we how does the results will meet the customer expectations. When it comes to computer scientists, so there will be different designations or tags for those people who work on the hardware part. So ideally, like people who are interested in computer architecture in their UG, so might be interested in like contributing to the advancement of hardware part as well.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So we hear about like natural language processing in AI and ML, and like I noticed that natural language processing is one of the areas of your expertise as well. So for those of us who don't understand it fully, can you give us a practical example to help us understand how it works and is applied in real life?
Absolutely. So we would have come across people can just Google on NLP, and there will be like NLP real world applications and all. And also like if you if we can just search for NLP libraries, we'll end up in getting different libraries like Stanford University Stanza, which is like core NLP library, and Transformers, which is like from Hugging Face, who have been like providing like pre-trained models on different applications of NLP. So I would like to point out a simple example when like everyone will be using like we'll be using Google search in our day-to-day life, right? All the students who are in industry, people like everyone who is using the search engine will encounter this customer journey. So how does our journey initiates is basically based on the search query we are typing in. So it can be a keyword or a sentence that we are targeting in. So initially the algorithm behind the keyword searches is page rank algorithm, which based on the noun phrases, it will actually matches with the all the databases based on the search query that you're pointing into. And also there will be some of the filters where we are searching for, right? So if it is in which geographic location that you're looking into, so all those considerations will be put into the application in order to give us a top 25 ranked in our first page in the first result. So when it comes to like as an extension, so there are a couple of additional things that are happening. So right now the Google page rank is based on the BERT algorithm that has been proposed by Google, right? So like kind of advancing the algorithms on the overall search capability at different point of time in terms of both uh, speed and also like in a scalable fashion, and also satisfying to the customer needs in terms of identifying the exact search results that we are targeting for will be in the first place or second place, which should be in top 10, right? So if it is only in the top 5 positions, we will be satisfied in terms of the search results. So that's how it has to work. And also as a customer journey, it can be a text search, or it can be a voice search, or it can be image search. So ideally the technology behind the applications that we use, if it is a text query that we are searching for, so ideally there has to be an NLP application behind it in order to like cope up with the user results. When it is like voice, it has to be translated into or like the speech has to be converted into text, and then the search query has to happen. And if it is a image that we are searching for, the Google Lens performs what are the pixels that has to be identified, and the object recognition will be applied. And so kind of the technology that we deal with is basically on the kind of application that we're looking into, right? So ideally, as a customer journey, based on the application that you're using, the backend technology will be different. So one like real-time example that I would say is like Google search engine. So there is also a research blog within Google, where it explained how the Google search engine works. And when it comes to like one of the popular methodologies that we're currently using also, which is like Transformer, and also other libraries are there for NLP related text processing, pre-processing, and then application oriented process as well. I would like point out to like text summarization, where this was the first research in which as an NLP progressed in terms of the research and also production grade aspect also. So ideally, like text classification we would have come across, and also text summarization. One of my first project in my industry is basically text summarization, where we wanted to propose a methodology where the input will be a textbook, which will consist of different chapters, and for each chapters we have to like come up with a abstract, which is the summary of the chapter. So each book which has been published, with either it can be from publishers Springer, Elsevier and all. So their books will be of different a single book will consist of different chapters, but all the chapters will be of different area of expertise. Within NLP, one will talk about text summarization, one will talk about text classification. So kind of like varying within the domain itself. So we wanted to understand the context of the chapter, and we have to summarize it into 150 words or 200 words according to the client's requirement. So how this process will work. So when it comes to like if it is and since it has to be automated, and how we can identify the popular or the meaningful phrases within the chapter, and also how it is organized. So those things has to be considered in order to summarize these things. So ideally we have to propose a framework and automate it, implement it, and then come up with a solution. And if the solution doesn't meet the client expectation, how the overall process can be improvised at each and every steps. So
that's super interesting, because like as students we could definitely use that. But more than that, just like that brings me to my next question, because this is something that I think, as I'm sure as a data scientist or someone in computer science, you would get a lot, which is that this generic fear of jobs being replaced by computers, or like, you know, automation coming in. Sorry. So like, do you think that something like this, sorry,
okay,
could replace like legal documents?
okay. For legal documents, there is a library called from Spacey. I don't remember the library name. Okay, so I'll just get back to the library name. But we have a couple of libraries or researches that has been happening. Legal text is a library, and also I don't. I'll get back. I'll identify the library name. So within Spacey, there are different researches that has been happening. So when I was exploring,
but do you think this has the potential to like take up jobs in the future, or like where do you see this going in the future?
So absolutely no. So it is basically from what I would say is like we have to develop the skills in which how to handle these set of advanced technologies or the systems that we develop, right? For example, Google's Waymo, which is an self-driving car. So as a technology people, we ourselves has to be like capable of handling the so that there is always a human level intervention that has to happen at all levels of the technology advancements that are happening, right? So we have to upgrade our skills rather than like thinking that AI or will destroy the human level intervention across all the capabilities that has been involved. So absolutely, I would disagree with that part, wherein we have to upgrade ourselves in terms of like handling those advanced technologies and upskill ourselves in order to cope up with the technology advancements. One such example is like, as I mentioned, like there is always a person needed in order to like monitor the self-driving car from start point to the end point, right? So ideally, we don't need to drive it, but there is always a human level intervention of monitoring it. So that kind of skill set has to be developed in terms of how we can handle the automated self-driving car.
Thank you for that answer, Doctor. So I also wanted to ask something similar. It's that you've done work in criminal behavior analysis before. So
Yeah.
could you share some more of that with us? Because I wanted to know if we'll ever have a situation like, say, in the movie Minority Report, and what are your views on it?
Absolutely. So that research has been started when during my initial days of my research. So where I was provided with, it was open source data that I've dealt with. That is to kind of like sentiment analysis, which was like identify the behavior of the people within the reviews that has been provided. So kind of identifying the abuse words and which are the good words, like contextual identification of the words, like I wouldn't say like semantic next into it, but to identify the word level or phrase level things that are present in the reviews or the text that I'm dealing with, which is a social media data, where since that is that, so identifying the behavior in terms of like differentiating or text, it's basically a text classification problem where we need to identify and extract all those meaningful phrases, and has to be classified into a regular word, or if it is an abusive word, just a binary or multi-class classification problem. And also there was a project, real-time project that we were working on, which is basically from a medical domain, which is a website. So there will be patients and doctors who will be using that website. So if and the patient will be like putting the query or writing reviews upon their medications, they might be asking queries within the website, and there might be some abusive comments as well. So what we need to do is there will be a time span of 5 or 10 minutes, so that it has to be reviewed, and if it is a positive comment, or if it needs to be addressed by a doctor, so that has to be notified to the doctor. And if it is an abusive comment, the website has to block those comment, and the reviewers has to send some review to the user that has been posted, right? So those kinds of things that we were handling, and we built a model in terms of having all, like, it has been labeled by the medical professionals. We had some of our doctors to label it manually for around like 4 years data, and provided those 4-year data, we built a model which is a simple binary classification model, where it has to mention, so this needs attention and this needs to be deleted from the account and has to be notified to the user, and also the person who has to like contact the person that you have mentioned the abusive comment. So ideally we have a mere amount of data to be trained, and also we have classified by means of a subject matter expertise. And absolutely the and also we achieved around like 90, since it is manually labeled by a subject matter expertise, and the ML model could provide us only 96% of accuracy on the real-time data that we tested out for around like 3 months. So, and over a period of time, and based on the quality of data, the model will be trained. So as a NLP as an application, I would say the quality of data that we deal with, the model will perform well. And as a data scientist, I would say like, or most of the work, 80% of the work what we are doing will be on the sanity work that we are doing, data cleansing, wrangling, and kind of data preparation work we wanted to like concentrate on, then the model building part.
Thank you so much for that answer, Doctor. I think we will be moving to online Q&A now. So we have one question from an attendee. It says, will there be a day when auto-censoring can happen in social media or TV content if certain kinds of words which may be abusive or other negative connotation can be identified? And it follows with, will there be a day when online bullying can be completely stopped?
Absolutely, yes. Wherein even currently, I would say I would like to point out Twitter's blocking account or suspending the account based on the, like, if it is an harassment based comment or any tweets that has been like which is accusing someone, or if it is violating some Twitter rules, it will be removed or the account will be suspended, right? So ideally, currently what happens is basically using different models, they might identify the keywords based on which is like harassment based or different, like ideally if it is text, this actually phrase or keyword based identification of those words. And in future, it will also be included with the semantic capability as well. So what is the meaning of the whole sentence? Are we like with any sarcasm included in that? So all those will also be included in near future, wherein there are a couple of researches has been happening in terms of like sarcasm detection and also like paraphrasing, all those things. I would absolutely say yes, because due to the current research that has been happening, and also the current set of implications that we encounter in our daily day-to-day life, absolutely in next few years we'll be able to identify all those comments in social media and we can report it. And also there I mean, even in Facebook, we can report if we find it abusive or if it is not relevant or if it is a harassment, or if we wanted to report something on the video or if it is a comment, we can do that, right? So all those information will be collated within the Facebook website, and it will be like tagged, right? So it is, we are labeling it as this is an irrelevant content based on some tags, right? If it is harassment, if it is a false information, so we'll be tagging it based on this particular video or this particular sentence or this particular post is basically a is a false information. So that kind of tagging will be provided by us. So ideally, over a period of time, the Facebook will have a limited amount of data so that it can train their own model, so that ideally as a next step, those models will be implemented and tested it out with the real-time data, right?
There's another question that we have. I think this is in relation to the question that you previously answered about manual labeling that you had done for one of your projects. So they've asked that how often do you update these data models? Because a lot of the tagging that you said was manual, and these changing tags, and how often do you change these tags with the passing of time, since most of this is manual and they must need to be changed?
Got it. So there are a couple of libraries that we can use in terms of automating the labeling process itself. Snorkel is one such library. And also, as I mentioned, in our like things, right, we have achieved around like 96% accuracy, and the remaining 4% has to be like manually intervened and has to be labeled again, right? So ideally, when we have a limited amount of data, so the 4-year data, which I would say like 10 lakh instances, and the 3-month instances will be like 1,000 or 10,000 new instances. And within those 10,000 instances, and here the 96% are the accurate one. So it can be incremental. We can have an incremental model where these 10,000 instances can also be appended to our existing model, so that the remaining 4% can be manually labeled by the subject matter expertise, and the overall 10,000 labels can be used to train the model again. So as a whole, how far we are incrementing our model or trained with a larger amount of data with multiple samples. And also we need to concentrate on the classifier that we are using, and also number of classes that we are focusing on. For example, there will be biases in classes itself. If it is a binary classification, there will be 50%, there won't be like 50% positive and 50% negative within our data. So there will be like 80% of data will be positive and the remaining 30% or 20% will be negative. So how we are handling these biases within the data set, and how we are normalizing, so how we are like standardizing the data. So those kinds of things will come into play when we actually deal with our real-time data.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer. This is a question that I think I also struggle with, because this is why I got into data science. But someone's asked that with great power comes great responsibility. So this particular person is trying to become a developer. So they're asking that what ethical standards can they follow to make sure that they don't end up creating things that can be used by, say, oppressive regimes, or what, like you've used data science for, say, like social good, right? And you've used it in multiple of your projects. So what standards and how do you navigate that process, and how do you think about that entire process?
Okay, so See, ideally, like all the projects that we deal with, so like there are a couple of things that has been happened in terms of like in the image processing, couple of research has been happened face to face, and I don't remember the name of the application, which is ended up with the as a negative impact of data science improvement or AI technology improvements. So it is up to the, I mean, we can have a model and the decision making can happen based on the insights that we get from the data, wherein it is up to the people who are using those models in terms of what kind of application that we are taking into or applying into. So ideally it is up to our ethical standard, individual person's ethics in terms of how we can use the technology in a right way. And I mean, can you like repeat the question again?
The person's asked what ethical standards should they follow to make sure that they don't end up creating things that could be used by oppressive regimes.
Okay. So I would say, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, so it is completely within our own ethics, and also on the data that we are using has some legal compliances within itself, right? So if you are working for any company or industry, so they have their own legal teams involved in terms of like how those data can be utilized and what are the limits of utilizing the data and how it can be like how the data transformation can happen, all those things. So ideally it is completely depending upon us, so the company that we are working for, and also if it is, and also there will be open source data that are available within us, right? So those data can be utilized only for the research purpose and cannot be used for the production level utilization, and also it won't meeting the production level criteria as well. So for example, if you look at Amazon's data, we might end up with lots of data sets within Amazon, kind of having fashion domain, a different, like it will provide us different varieties of data like Goodreads data, which will have the where we can build book recommendation systems. And ideally we can I'm trying to say is we can build or we can innovate different models, and the utility is based on the legal compliance that the companies abided with.
Thank you so much for that answer, Doctor. So I had a similar question about that myself. Considering like the recent tech giants like Facebook and Google, and considering how there have been experiments by Facebook and Google that have come out and have been said that these were not taken by the participants' consent. So what would you say is the situation with bias and ethical concerns in data science? So this is related to the previous question, but yeah, because of the tech giants, I wanted to ask this.
Understood. So ideally, like as I mentioned, due to the within the data sets itself, we can have biases, right? So addressing those biases when after the model building and all those processing and all, it depends upon the application that we are using. If it is a recommendation system that we are like I'm currently working on, which is personalized recommendation system, and we have to provide some meaning or reasoning for recommendation. Why I'm like we are dealing with transaction data and a customer portfolio, merchant portfolio, and all. So for each customer, we have to provide some recommendations based on the offers that are available for each customer across different merchants. So if I'm providing some recommendation to customer one, and based on his transaction history and all only, I can provide him these are the next set of merchants that you can look into. And why I'm providing these recommendations. So that has to be inferred from the data that I'm dealing with. So all those inferences and how we are handling the biases within the data, because and it depends upon the current the type of the data that we are dealing with, because and these data will be categorical data, text data, wherein like from the text we have to extract tags, and within the categorical and numerical data, which is like age group and different spend behavior, different credit card limits, and the work behavior, or different categories that they spend, because different people will have their transaction only on retail, only on entertainment, all those things. So those biases needs to be handled in a better way in order to provide them recommendations. So ideally, as a from the research point of view, from Google, like responsible AI and fairness 360 and Google's What If. So all those libraries are currently being utilized in terms of like understanding the interpretation of the models that we are dealing with, and infer the better results that we can provide meaningful, or explain why it is recommended to you, and explain why the decision has been made. So all those explainability, ethics, handling those bias will come into play in a confined way, in which we should handle it in a better way in terms of end user level outcome that we are providing. So ideally, like as a research focus, I would like suggest the data science enthusiasts who can focus on like try out these different libraries, and if can take it up as a research point of view, and work on that as a next set of improvements that they can contribute to.
Thank you. We just have one last question before we end for break. And this is more of like a generic question about you and your journey as a data scientist, because we've got this question a lot. But I think people just want to know that how did you decide to become a data scientist, and what was your journey like to become a data scientist, and how is it going for you, and where do you see yourself, and what would you recommend to, I don't know, women in data science like me who are trying to get into data science?
Okay, absolutely good question. So I didn't have any objective in terms of like I should be this in next 10 years and all. So my involvement in NLP and also my research as a machine learning, text mining and all, like it happened accidentally. I wouldn't say accidentally, but in search of data. So ideally, as a research folk, like I was looking for data set that at that point of time, machine learning, deep learning are the initial state of mind for me at that point of time during 2014 within Chennai. So I was looking for different set of data, because I was much interested in like contributing to medical field, wherein within medical field I was looking for data where we can get data as a patient demographic information, and we can't get into the summary of the patient because it is completely unacceptable for providing the data, because within India there are multiple conflict of interest within the patient and doctors, and also like if it has to be provided to the university level research project, that is a separate legal process that has to come into picture. So in search of data only, I picked up, which I was looking for an open source data, because all these has been like tried out for 1.5 years, and like nothing could provide me much like quality of data. I couldn't get the quality of data, as in like when we looked into the data from CMC Vellore, so they were able to provide us a mere amount of data, but we couldn't cover all the attributes. So I was looking for like I was focusing on a similar tool, which is Frax. The tool is basically for orthopedic patients or women who are more than 44 years, are basically like they are prone to have bone fractures, or their bone will be degrading. So we might not be aware of that. So more than 45 years, it has to be like figured out, right? So based on different multiple factors, it can be calculated, or it can be predicted early, so that this cannot be like the treatment or the prediction can happen early in order to like cope up with the diagnosis process. So at that point of time, I couldn't get enough data in order to like develop a model as such. If it is a foreign university, maybe I don't know, like University of Wisconsin and all, they have their own data and they have the research lab and all. So that kind of flexibility couldn't happen within Indian universities, right? So that's how like I was looking. Then I started looking for open source data, where research publications happened, right? PubMed, Medline, abstracts, and also the full list of publications that can happen within the medical domain. So then I started like collecting all those data. So there also there were different conflicts, like which can, some of the research papers will be open source, some will be like only abstracts will be there. So let's concentrate only on the abstract is what I decided on. And then we can't just focus on multiple research projects, but it has to be narrowed down into one domain. So then I looked into like neurodegenerative disorder, which is like collecting people who have all the medicinal details, gene information, and the drugs that has been used for those neurodegenerative disorders and all. Then we have collected around like 8,000 abstracts for neurodegenerative disorder around, in which there also like there are multiple disorders within neurodegenerative disorder. So there also we have to like narrow down into two set of diseases, which is Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and also like included the Huntington disease also. So these are the neurodegenerative disorders that are like mostly happening to the people. So provided these diseases, what are the other set of diseases that these patients might get into? So are they like genetic disorder? So all those things will happen. And also like after collecting the data, so there comes the NLP in terms of identifying the keywords. And those keywords can be gene names, disease names, drug names. So it has to be classified into gene name. So after identifying the gene name also, it has to be validated. And what kind of existing databases are available for validating the gene names? So there were like different databases, which is GAD, disease associated, gene associated, GAD database, which is genetic, I don't know the I just forgot the GAD database expansion. I'm sorry. So different databases are there in terms of like where we can validate the gene name, disease name that has been like maintained historically with as a taxonomy. So ideally, that's how my research journey happened in terms of search of data. I ended up looking for text data. Then within the text data, how the biomedical field can be incorporated, and how different techniques of NLP and machine learning can be included in terms of this text name entity extraction, relation extraction, and then knowledge discovery, and what kind of novel information can be inferred from this, and how we can validate it. So this is how it progressed as my research.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that
Thank
answer.
you so much. It was
And
lovely.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.